It's time. It's tater planting time here in South Georgia. Our soil has finally dried up enough to plant potatoes. We're about 10 days past our perfect ideal planting date, which is the 14th of February. Here we are, the 24th of February, but still plenty within that good window there where we need to get our potatoes planted. We've got some rain coming this afternoon and the next few days, so it's not going to get any drier around here, so we need to get these things in the ground today. We've got our two plots here we're going to plant potatoes in. The smaller plot here, which is about 20 by 30 foot long, and that longer plot over there, which is 20 foot wide by about 60 foot long. If we take a look here at our soil, we can see still a little moist there in some spots, but it's dry enough to get these potatoes in the ground. There's some of that mustard from where I had that other crop there. So as dry as it's going to get for the next week or so, we go look at this other plot here where we had that cover crop cocktail. We can see that all that is broken down pretty good. Everything got chopped up nicely. Still got a few spots in here that look a little damp, but like I said, this is as dry as it's going to get the next week or so, so we need to go ahead and get these puppies in the ground. You can still see a few of those little radishes right there that are still being broken down. And even though it's supposed to rain, hey Tiger, you ready to plant potatoes? Even though it's supposed to rain, our potatoes have been healing and suberizing for over a week now, so the skins are nice and tough on them, so we shouldn't have to worry about anything as far as them rotting in the soil, even if we do get some heavy rains in the next few days. Should be just fine because we had plenty of time to let them heal over while we were waiting on the soil to dry. Now I've already got my stakes out here marked off where my rows are going to be. I like to plant my potatoes in rows 3 foot apart. You can go further than that. You can go 4 feet apart or 5, whatever you want to do. I wouldn't go closer than 3 because the problem you have there is you don't have a whole lot of dirt to use to hill them. So 3 foot is close as I like to go. So I've got my stakes laid out here for 3 foot rows, and what I do here is I put me a mark in the soil at the beginning of one row, and then I'll drive down there to that stake, and then there's a mark down there, and we'll drive to this stake. So I don't put a stake at both ends of every row, just a mark at one end and a stake at the other end, and I can use my double wheel hoe and just drive to that stake and get a relatively straight line. Now this plot here is about 60 foot long, which is about the maximum I can do a straight row without using a string. These may get a little wobbly, but it'll be just fine. They always say you could fit more taters, more plants in a crooked row, so if we get a little crooked, it won't be a big deal. So now all we need to do is go grab our double wheel hoe with the plow set attachment on it and bust out a furrow to put these potatoes in. So I've got my double wheel hoe here with the plows in the furrowing position. And now this wheel hoe here has got some miles on it, but still performing just as good as it did when it was all shiny and new. These things here are built to last a lifetime. Anyway, so our plow set here, we have a left and a right plow. The left plow always throws soil to the left. The right plow always throws soil to the right. So when you want to put them in the furrowing position to make a furrow or a trench, your left plow, if you're standing behind the wheel hoe, the left plow is going to go on the left side of the toolbar. The right plow is going to go on the right side of the toolbar. You could also do this with our high arch wheel hoe. We'll show it in a little bit when we're actually covering the potatoes, but here on the double wheel hoe, this is what it looks like, and that's just going to kind of split the soil, push it out both ways, making a nice little furrow or trench to put our potatoes in. All right. We got those furrows made. Now it's time to get some spuds in the ground. We're gonna be planting about 500 row feet of potatoes. We got 6 60-foot rows in that big plot, and then 5 about 30-foot rows in that smaller plot. So there's our furrows, 3 feet apart. Now those ain't the most perfectly straight rows you've ever seen, but they're straight enough. Just makes it a little quicker doing it that way as opposed to using the string. So for the sake of time, we just drive to that stake. And then we've got our smaller plot over here, where we've got 5 rows in here. Still got those beets right there. I'll be pulling those pretty soon, and I can use that soil where those are to heal this row right here. We have a lot of people who ask how deep a furrow that plow set on the wheel hoe makes, and it's going to depend on your soil type a good bit. If you have sandier soils, they're a little more loose, it's going to make a deeper furrow. This soil here is sandy, but it's also got a decent bit of clay in there. It's pretty heavy soil, and I'll show you here. Let me get that back like it was. It's going to make about a 4.5 inch furrow in the soil, which is plenty deep enough to plant potatoes. So we're going to start off with this Kennebec white potato, and I was originally going to plant just 2 rows of these, but I've had a lot of people in the comments saying that this is their go-to potato, that they really like it. And since I got 6 rows in this plot where I originally only thought I was going to get 5, I'm going to plant 3 rows of these guys because I think I'm really going to like them. Now you'll see some people when they're planting potatoes, they'll just kind of throw them down in the soil like that right there, which is okay. I like to press mine down and get them snug in there. And the reason I like to do that is so when I come behind here with the plow set on the wheel hoe to cover this up, it doesn't flip these potatoes over. We always want that skin side facing down. We want the eyes facing up so they have the path of least resistance to come up through that soil there. So I like to kind of press mine down in there so they stay in the same position even when that wheel hoe and plow set comes over here and covers them up. And then as far as spacing goes, you'll see some people who like to plant them a foot or more apart. If you know me, I like to kind of test the limits of how close I can plant things. So I like to plant mine about 6 to 8 inches apart. So I'll stack them in here pretty thick along this row. All right, 3 rows of Kennebec in the ground now to the Yukon Gold and the Red Norland. I'm gonna plant 2 rows of these Yukon Golds and just 1 row of this Red Norland. I like the red potatoes. Everybody seems to like them. That's what most people grow the most of. They're not my favorite compared to the Yukons or some of the other varieties. So I'm just gonna grow 1 row of these. And now to the smaller plot here, we're going to plant some of these fingerling potatoes, the Austrian crescent, the French fingerling, and this Adirondack blue potato. The rows in here are only 30 feet long, so half as long as that other plot. Now some of these here, let's see if I can find one, are cut on both ends. So we can put them down that way, or we can put them down this way, or we might even lay them this way and just make sure those eyes are facing upwards towards the soil. So we got those spuds stuck in the ground there. We got 3 rows of Kennebec, 2 rows of Yukon Gold, and then 1 row of Red Norlands over here. And then the smaller plot, we got a row of Adirondack blue, 2 rows of French fingerling, and 2 rows of Austrian crescent. And just to give you an idea of how many potatoes I used, how many pounds, for these smaller fingerling potatoes, I used a 10-pound bag cut up, and that covered 2 30-foot rows. So 60 feet of row feet per 10 pounds of potatoes cut up with these smaller ones. And then over here, use the Kennebecs as an example. I cut up 25 pounds of Kennebecs and I was able to plant 180 row feet, 360-foot rows there. So 25 pounds of the bigger potatoes cut up covered 180 row feet for me. Now if you put them a little further apart, a foot or so apart, you might get them to stretch longer than that. But the way I was spacing them, 180 row feet per 25 pounds. So now all we got to do is take our wheel hoe and zip these babies up. Close that furrow, throw some dirt on those potatoes, and we'll be good to go. Let me show you what that looks like. So to cover these potatoes, we're going to use our high arch wheel hoe here. Now you could easily use that double wheel hoe that we used to create the furrow and just turn the plows around. But I already had this one set up in the hilling position, and I wanted to show you, both models. You can use either one for this potato planting technique. The high arch does have a little more versatility as far as how you can set up the plows, how wide you can set them. Let me fold it back this way and I can show you. So right here, you have the wheel and the toolbar attached. You actually have two separate toolbars, and you can bring these toolbars in closer. They're on their outermost position now, but you can bring them in closer. There's about a 3 to 4 inch range there. So you have a little bit more flexibility here as far as how you can position those plows. So when I'm standing behind the wheel hoe, like I am now, and I want the plows to be in the hilling position, I'm gonna have my left plow, which is always gonna throw dirt to the left on the right side. I'm gonna have my right plow, which is always gonna throw dirt to the right on the left side. So let's take this puppy right here and close up them furrows and we'll be good to go. All right. We got them zipped up and them seed potatoes are snug as a bug in a rug. Got about 360 row feet here, and those look real good there. About 150 row feet here. Now I've had a lot of people ask, why don't you use drip irrigation on your potatoes, or can you use drip irrigation on your potatoes? Yes, you can. I don't. I'm a little bit prone to overwater, and the one time I did use it on potatoes, I just kept it too wet and a lot of them rotted. So I'm a little too trigger happy to be using drip on potatoes, but you can do it. Let me show you how you need to do it if you're going to use drip on potatoes. So if you're going to use drip tape on potatoes, I wouldn't recommend putting it down, burying it right when you put those seed pieces down, because those seed pieces aren't going to need a lot of water till they start emerging from the soil and establishing some roots. So what I would recommend doing is, once those things sprout out of the ground, then lay your drip tape right beside those plants, and then it will be covered up on your first hilling that you do with those plants. So wait till the plants emerge from the soil, lay your drip tape beside them, and then cover it with that first hilling. Another question we get a lot is, should I put some fertilizer down before I plant my potatoes? And it's not a bad idea at all. A lot of people will put some 10-10-10 or any other kind of balanced fertilizer down before they plant their potatoes. And that's a pretty good idea. I do it a little bit differently. So what I like to do is, I don't put any fertilizer down pre-plant. But once my potatoes start emerging from the soil, I'll come in there and put some of my chicken manure compost between the rows. And then when I heel those plants, it kind of gets pushed up around them and it feeds them really good. So that's the way I do it. You definitely want to fertilize potatoes a couple times throughout their lifespan, early, and then it's a good idea to do it kind of around each hilling event. So you can use some granular fertilizer. That works good. I'm gonna use my chicken manure compost and feed them that way. If you have any other questions about planting potatoes, put those in the comments below and I'll be glad to try to answer them for you. If you have a different way of planting potatoes, let me know about that. I'm always willing to try new things. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button and that thumbs up button. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, do that. Hit that subscribe button and that bell button down below so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you enjoyed this video, go take a look at this one right here. I think you'll really enjoy it as well. We'll see you guys next time.